Well, good afternoon, Juanita.
Hi, Mark. What an intro.
That was a fanfare for us today. So that's our first week of having a very, very special intro. So thank you to Amy and Brooke for getting that done. But it was worthy of the quality of the work that we do.
Absolutely.
Looks like you're in the office today.
I am. I'm back on deck in the office. Hence the CBD background. Yes.
Very good. Anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who's watching today to the session of Estate and Succession Mastery. So welcome to Juanita Maiden, and I'm Mark Westcott. And today we're just going to talk about having allowing people a second opinion. It's one of the things that we do in our process. Certainly is when people first come to us. A lot of times they're not sure about the effectiveness of their current will, so we've created originally with Tom McVeigh the whole concept of allowing clients to have a second opinion to I guess just to justify, not to justify, sorry, to determine whether or not what they've got in place is appropriate for their needs. So Juanita, anything you'd like to say just to kick off the conversation today?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hesitant to step in a lawyer's office sometimes or make that phone call because they think that they're going to part with wads of cash from their wallets. So we like to offer this opportunity that we're going to talk about, just to get open the doors, get the conversation started, and have a look at what's in place and see if we can help or if the client would like some help.
Yeah, and just off the record, not on the record.
On the record.
On the record, this is a free service which Murdoch certainly offer at the moment to allow you some comfort, I guess, to understand whether or not what you've got in place is going to represent what you want. So remember, I'm not the lawyer today, and today is not about lawyer bashing at any level, but I think it's important that people understand the facts in regard to statistically, what percentage of people have current up-to-date wills. I always make comment in my conversations, presentation, webinars, whatever. My belief is that probably about 95% of people in Australia do not have a current, up-to-date, valid or appropriate will. That is my belief. And I'll go further to say that in my 30-something years of dealing with people in regard to estate and succession planning, I have yet to find one client, friend, anybody who has asked me to have a look at what they've got in place. So I've yet to find one that fully represents what their intentions are, what they'd want for their family and their loved ones if something was to happen to them. So I see this as something really significant and something really serious. And I often make this akin to if you had a brain tumour, and I've used this quote over and over again, if you had a brain tumour, you wouldn't go to a GP. And I guess that's where I'd like to start the conversation today without picking on lawyers, because you're one of the good guys, Juanita.
Good, thank you. I guess it's probably like as you started explaining there, it's a very good analogy. A lot of people don't understand or appreciate that not every lawyer is the same. And as you said, it can sometimes be the difference between going to a GP or a pediatric specialist when you actually want to go to a orthopedic surgeon.
Neurosurgeon.
Yeah, sure. And so it's very similar with law. So in law, you will have general practitioners, and you'll also have lawyers with specific expertise in their area, which may be property, maybe litigation, and in my case, it's wills and estates, and that comes with many years' experience in that particular area. And with the greatest respect to all my colleagues, every lawyer is different, and so it's finding the right lawyer for you and for your purposes.
Look, absolutely. I quote the number regularly that about probably 3% of all lawyers in Australia actually really know what they're talking about in regard to estate and succession planning. We can just keep using this analogy all day long, and it's no one's fault. But I mean, I think what's important is if you identify in life medically, and this is the other big gap I'll come to, but if you identify in life medically what's wrong with you, well, you find someone who's a specialist in that area. So if you've got bone problems, if you've got skin problems, if you've whatever, you go to the right discipline of specialist if you've got a serious problem. Now, if you don't have much of a problem, or if you don't have much of an estate, and if you've only got 10 grand or something in the bank, you don't have any life insurance and so on, well, I guess there's nothing we can do for you. But I mean, if you do have something serious, you need to go to a specialty. And one point I'll make, Juanita, is if people, and I think people are scared of solicitors, and I think that's what the issue is, is that if you go to a doctor and they screw up, you sue their ass. You're gonna drag them through the law courts. You're gonna, people these days would, like, if a doctor messes up an operation and leaves a pair of pliers in your tummy, there's nothing surer than there's going to be a law case bigger than Ben-Hur. So, but if a lawyer stuffs up in estate planning, there's two things. One, you're dead. So it's a bit hard to initiate something from the grave. But the second point is, I think people by nature are not going to take on a law firm in a legal case because, that doesn't need explaining. So do you think that's what an issue is?
Yeah, I think a few thoughts come to mind as you were speaking. And I guess a will has many purposes that a lot of people don't realise. And so, I hate to think that people think that they shouldn't have a will unless they've got large wealth, because that's not necessarily the truth. A lot of people don't actually realise how much wealth they've got when they take into account superannuation and items of sentimental nature, which may be, more sentimental in value than in dollar value. But wills can also do such things as set out your funeral wishes. They can also appoint guardians for your children when you and if your spouse or partner pass away. And look, that's a very powerful thing, to be able to express your wishes in that regard. And whether small wealth or large wealth, the fact is that most people, if not all people, have some assets and liabilities which need to be dealt with after your death. And so you want the person that you trust to handle those things to be handling them. And that may not be that person if you don't have a will. So you're allowed to appoint who you would like to administer your estate. So all these other little things come back to why it's important to have a will. And I think as we've said before, a will is better than no will in most circumstances. But doing your will on a will kit or going to a GP as such, may not suit your particular needs. So it's really, I'm trying to word this without being disrespectful to my other colleagues or spruiking ourselves too much, Mark. But it really is, that is a fact that there is this area of expertise. And we enjoy doing what we do. A lot of people won't or don't, but we do. And that's why, hopefully, we provide a good service to those that need us in this area.
So I'll ask this question, Juanita. People, everyone knows the solicitor. They've got a mate. They've got someone down the road that did their conveyancing for the house they bought. They walk down the street and they see a sign up which says solicitor. So there's, and your industry generally is you're the only people that can do wills. So there's sort of a correlation. If they see a lawyer's sign, they think, oh, well, I'll go in. And in fairness, most lawyers would probably say, oh, while you're here, do you want me to do your will for you? I'm going to use the example of a client we've recently started doing some work with. They're probably worth about $10 million. They're rural people. We got a copy of their will the other day. They thought, oh, do you want to have a look at this before we get together and start the succession planning conversation and so on? They had a one-page will. This husband and wife, they had one-page will each. They're worth $10 million between them, and they have 3 children, 2 of whom are keen to come back onto the farm, the other one not so much. And the last person to do their will did it on one piece of paper.
Yeah.
And you just go, wow, how does this happen? And this is not uncommon. This I run across all the time, and I sort of think, wow, how, when you've got an industry where you're the only ones that can actually write the wills, and yet you've got people who, and I'll be careful what I say here, but maybe don't have a specialty or a high competence in regard to what needs to go into those wills, or the questions that need to be asked before putting those wills together. And I think that's probably a key thing. Most times I think people just say, oh, well, we think we know, the lawyer will say, oh, you're such and such, this is the sort of will you need. You just want it all to go to your wife and vice versa. And without giving it too much thought.
Punch out that template,
this one-page template, and charge a lot of money for it. I sadly, I just keep finding this all the time. I can keep telling you stories. $30 million client down in Victoria, 3 sons, big business. He had a 2-page will. And yet he told, when I asked him, he told me, yeah, Mark, we've got testamentary trusts, we've got this, we've got all this taken care of. And when his wife finally said it was okay to show me a copy of the will, all it basically said was, sell the whole business up, divide it equally between everyone, and off you go, make up your own arrangements. And one of the sons had already was in the middle of going through divorce, which meant out of the $30 million, the son was going to get 8 or something like that, 7, 8 million, and straight away half was going to go off to the person who was divorcing. So there's so much, which brings me back to the topic, which is there's so much value in, as a starting point in conversations with you and me, Juanita, is the service that you guys offer, which is just a second opinion on the will. So if you're not sure whether what you've got is really appropriate and going to do all the things that you want to do, I love the fact that you guys are prepared to just, as a community service, effectively say, well, okay, let me have a look at it, and this is what it will do and this is what it won't do. So at least people are then more informed by someone who knows what they're talking about.
And I think people that have heard us speak before on different topics will have heard me say that it's always important to review your will. It doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be updated. So we always recommend that your will be reviewed every 5 years max, or on an event which is significant, such as births, deaths, business acquisitions, property sales, marriage, divorce. That they're triggers to review your wills and your estate planning documents. Doesn't mean that they need to be replaced, but they certainly need to be reviewed. And that's a similar philosophy that we've got here. A quick review doesn't mean anything needs to be updated, but we can give some broad arching recommendations or options, and then the client can go from there. I also think
if I can just cut it, also peace of mind. If everything is in place, well, how good is that to have the second person come back and say everything's good?
Absolutely. And I think it's now I've lost my train of yes. I think that one really important thing that I feel that we do a good job at, and I will say we do a good job at this, is being very transparent with fees. So we've already spoken about how a lot of people are scared of solicitors or ringing or stepping foot in the door because they're simply afraid, they need to drill a hole in the money box because what they're going to have to pay the solicitor. But I think any competent solicitor will be very transparent right from the start about what your costs will be. So if you go to a solicitor and they don't tell you that, then ask. With all our work, we work on a set fee basis. So we're always very clear upfront what the different options for you are, or for our clients are, and what the set fee will be. And so I think that's really important. So if you go to a solicitor, don't be afraid to ask right from the start what your fees will be. And then, you can make some informed decisions yourself about what you want to go ahead with.
Sure. And you raised a really valuable point before too, Juanita, and that is a lot of times people don't actually realise what their total wealth is and what is actually going to pass through their will on their death. And in other cases too, a lot of the wealth is outside of the will, in trusts, if that's the case, and so on. But these days with, even industry superannuation funds, if that's all even if you don't think you've got any money or wealth to transfer, you've probably got an industry super fund. There's probably a death benefit in there. And that's probably rolling into the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of wealth that you need to look after properly. So certainly there's a need to to have wills. If after you, I'm not going to
speaking-
interrupt this time.
I was speaking to a financial planner referrer of mine this morning just to touch base and see how he was going, how he's gone through all the COVID period and how business was. And he actually suggested or told me that he's been really busy because people have actually taken this time to stop and have a think about their finances and their wealth and their plans, and not only think but have some time to do something about it. So he was pleasantly surprised that he's been ticking along really nicely during this time. So I think that is what's happened. We've seen a bit of that ourselves, that people have actually, I don't know if they've been initially a bit scared about their mortality when the pandemic first hit in, but as time's gone on and they've had more time at home or less time commuting, etc., that a lot of people have actually put more thought into these things of this type.
Look, absolutely. My previous life, as you know, was certainly involved in the financial services industry and life insurance and so on. And one of the big issues was, especially in Australia and New Zealand, was the underinsurance problem. And that was that traditionally, most families, when someone passes, the level of insurance of that family is way lower than is actually needed to either pay out the mortgage, provide an education for the kids, or at least create safety around the family, so that with the loss of a significant breadwinner, that the family can still continue in a comfortable environment. So the underinsurance problem in Australia and New Zealand was very, very high. And so I'm going to put it out there exactly the same. The underwilling, what's the word?
I haven't heard of that term, but we'll go with it.
the underwilling, underwhelming. The underwhelming number of wills. In other words, the extremely high percentage of Australians who don't have an up-to-date, current or valid will is just mind-blowing. And part of the work that I do is my goal is 1 million families to save the lives of 1 million families by the time I'm gone in the next 25 years. So what have you put any thought to, or how would you encourage people to to reduce that underwhelming will problem?
Underwilling. I do agree with you, and the statistics that you spoke about before are quite mind-boggling. And I think what's useful to note is these days, more than ever before, people do have increased wealth. There's a real generational wealth shift that we're experiencing through superannuation and baby boomers and blended families, etc. So hence the need for the more bespoke advice, perhaps, or more so asking the right questions, as you alluded to before, because as I've said previously, the end result might be a relatively simple looking document, but it is the process and the questions and the procedure, I guess, that goes into that end result, which is where the value is and which is the most important thing. So again, all reasons why it's recommended to get someone that knows this stuff to actually be giving you that advice. I wonder, Mark, I was thinking, as you said, when you were talking about underinsurance and that problem you experienced, we've also seen sometimes, you and I both, overinsurance, because as people get to perhaps a very later stage of their life and don't necessarily have that same need and are paying massive premiums, that might be something that your financial advisor needs to review with you also. So, different horses for different courses at different times of their lives.
Sure. Look, I've never actually heard a widow who said there was too much money turned up from the insurance company. So I'm not sure overinsurance is as big a problem as underinsurance. But no, I mean, a good financial planner would be reviewing those details each year with their clients and so on. And I think I'll be brave again today, as I usually am. I mean, I've picked on lawyers who don't do a good enough job in this area, and I'm also going to pick on financial advisors who don't do a good enough job in this area. As part of a good financial plan as well. In fact, part of all their statements of advice these days, they should be recommending that clients get their will reviewed, updated. They should be checking to see whether or not the client actually has a will. And I mean, to be perfectly frank, that's part of their legal responsibility too, is to ask those sorts of questions. I mean, if your financial planner is doing a good job, he should be going through all your financial resources and so on, but also checking your documentation and certainly the currency of things like wills and so on, because I mean, that's needed as part of his job to work out where the money is going to go on someone's death. And probably what I've found in the past, and I think it's a real shortfall in the financial services industry, is that financial advisors will put in their statements of advice, or they'll put in their advice, you need to, they'll put in the line in the document which covers their backside, you need to review your wills, Harry, Fred, whoever, Sally. So they sort of cover themselves off by putting it in their advice statement. But unfortunately, there's just not enough advisors who have a passion in regard to, helping people to get this done, to get it sorted, and to follow through on it. And I mean, you understand that's basically where I came from. That was my background I came from, and I got sick of seeing people where all the documents weren't in place, and I could see no matter how much insurance you had in place for a client, if you didn't put the right legal structuring around it, if you didn't have the buy-sell agreements for partnerships, if you didn't have a succession plan, if your documents and your ownerships and superannuation rules and so on weren't up to date, it was just all going to turn to dust when someone, dies, which people do. So I think there's a huge opportunity for financial advisors to be more valuable for their clients as well by paying more attention to this as part of their process.
I agree, and I think as I've said before too, that the best results happen when your financial planner, your accountant, and your lawyer are all communicating with each other. And when I say that, the usual reaction or the common reaction is, "Oh my God, that would be so expensive! All these professionals all getting together in a room." But the fact is, when we are all communicating with each other and sharing the information that each of us have about our particular client, things are more efficient.
Sure.
It actually saves time. So instead of, trying to potentially get structures and searches and things like that off a client who might not completely be all over every part of their structure or their particular wealth, if the fin planner or the accountant can give that to me, we're away and we're already, I'm comfortable that they know that and that I'm comfortable with the information I have and I can start my work quicker. So contrary to popular belief, when your A team are all working together, it actually makes things, makes the wheel run smoother and quicker, I think.
Yeah, and look, we covered this a week or two ago when we talked about your due diligence report, Juanita, that you guys do as part of my process. I engage you guys to do the due diligence, which is just ever so valuable. And what that does, it actually forces all of the professional advisors to work together, because you've got to get information from the accountant. And I think the pressure of the time that's put on the situation to get the due diligence report out as quickly as possible, most times, we've had them done by you in a week, 10 days sort of maximum, which means that the financial planner, the mortgage broker, the share broker, the solicitor, the accountant are actually coming together with all the information, and then you can create an executive report based on that in regard to what the client needs to do in regard to certain situations or the things they can be doing better. But at least you've got a consolidated, up-to-date report that people can work intelligently from, which is just invaluable. And I think that the sad reality of what traditionally happens is that the financial planner, the accountant, the lawyer, not few people, but in GP land, so to speak, one of them will say, "Oh, Mark, you need to get your will done. Let me send you a draft. I'll get it to you." And the draft goes out, and then nobody follows up, and most of the time the lawyers haven't spoken to the accountant, and then I ring the accountant 6 months later and say, "Oh, look, I've been thinking of getting my will done. Can you get some of my figures or structures over to the solicitor. I go, yeah, Mark, we'll do that, and 4 months later that'll happen if we're lucky. But there's no, and that's why I do what I do, because there's no one sort of coordinating all that, bringing it all together to make sure that it all happens. And sadly, if you haven't got someone in that role, 99 times out of 100, it's just not going to happen. Everyone can have the best intentions, but everyone gets busy and life goes on.
Lucky we've got you, Mark.
Well, I didn't mean to just pump up my own tyres, but yes, you're right, absolutely right. You need that.
Yeah, and we don't have too much time left, but I guess I think hopefully people take away from today's conversation the importance of a good advisor, and asking the right questions, asking your advisor what you're going to get, how much it's going to cost, are they experienced in this field, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. And I think if you're not afraid and you do ask those questions, you'll end up with a good result.
Look, absolutely. And so there's a couple of points out of this. I think there's a huge opportunity for financial planners to take the lead in this with their clients, and to drag the clients kicking and screaming to the solicitors. The starting point would be for you guys, if people think they have something which is appropriate, and most people do, and I'll say, generally people like to defend what they've done, so they'll say, yeah, what I've got's fine and dandy, and that's good. So even if they think that, and even if it's true, coming to you for the second opinion, which is that free service that you guys offer is something valuable, because at least then they've got peace of mind of knowing, yep, what I've got's fine, or no, I need to pay some more attention to this. So today was about the second opinion, and just that you do for clients. And I'd just like to encourage anyone who might be watching this to, if you think you're okay but you're not 100% sure, or even if you just want to get a second opinion, certainly give Juanita a call and start the ball rolling from there.
Happy to
so
help.
Thanks, Juanita. Anything else you'd like to say before we sign off with our special new jingle?
We've got a new
we've got a closing jingle as well. Okay, thanks. That's right. Thanks, everyone, and it's been great having you on board today, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everyone.